Introduction. Inflation is a global economic concept. If there is increase in price level, it is termed as inflation. This results in decline in the value of money. Inflation is the rate of change in the price level. If the price level in the current year is P1 and in the previous year is PO, then the inflation for the current year is P1 minus PO upon PO multiplied by 100. Moderate inflation occurs when prices are rising slowly. We might classify this as single-digit annual inflation rates, less than, greater than, 0-10% per year. Galloping inflation occurs when prices start rising at double or triple-digit rates, 20-100% a year. Hyperinflation, the extraordinary price increase at annual rate of 100% or more, prevailing in a nation for at least 1 year. Learning objective. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to define inflation, cite the causes for inflation, explain the effects of inflation, describe the measures to control inflation. Meaning and definition. Inflation is generally associated with rapidly rising prices. Thus, in simple terms, inflation is decline in purchasing power due to an increase in prices. Professor Crowther defines inflation as a state in which the value of money is falling. That is, prices are rising. This definition fails to explain why the price level increases from time to time. Professor Kemmerer defined inflation as too much currency in relation to the physical volume of business being done. This definition compares supply of currency and services. An increase in supply of money is the cause and rise in price level is its effect. Causes of inflation. There are two main reasons of inflation: increase in demand for goods and services, decrease in supply of goods and services. Increase in demand for goods and services. Demand for goods and services increases due to following factors: increase in public and private expenditure due to war, developmental policies. Public expenditure increases, which leads to an increase in demand for goods and services in the economy. Increase in export. An increase in export reduces the stock of commodities available for home consumption. It creates a shortage of goods in the economy, so demands exceed the supply. Reduction in taxation. When taxes are reduced, there is an increase in purchasing power of consumers, so demand increases. Rapid growth of population. A rapidly growing population increases level of demand for goods and services in a country. Deficit financing. Government meets the deficit by borrowing from the public and Reserve Bank, and also by printing notes. This rises money supply. Therefore, demand and prices rise. Availability of credit. Due to an easy availability of credit, consumer spending rises. It also increases the demand for goods and services. Decrease in supply of goods and services. Decrease in supply for goods and services takes place due to following factors. Shortage of factors of production. The shortage of factors like land, labor, capital, etc. reduce the production of goods and services. It decreases the level of supply. Industrial disputes. Industrial disputes result in lockouts and lack of production and supply reduces. Natural calamities. Natural calamities adversely affect supply of goods and services. Lopsided production. More production of luxury goods reduces the supply of essential goods and hence inflation. Hoarding of goods. This is done by suppliers to make profit. This reduces supply and hence leads to inflation. Effects of inflation. Effects on production. A low inflation rate stimulates economic growth. Rise in price level initially leads to increase in profit ratio, investment and income. However, hyperinflation results into fall in value of money and decline in purchasing power. Inflation reduces saving and capital formation. It also adversely affects the quality of production. Inflation discourages the inflow of foreign capital as they become less profitable due to rising cost of production. Effects on distribution. Inflation leads to unequal distribution of wealth and income in the society. Entrepreneurs earn more profit. However, fixed income earners are adversely affected as their money income remains the same, while the value of money falls. People invested in equity shares gain money, whereas those who invested in fixed assets like bonds and deposits become losers. Debtors gain and creditors lose. Non-economic effects. Inflation widens the gap and creates conflicts between rich and poor. Due to inflation, some businessmen resort to adulteration, hoarding, quality deterioration, etc. This inflation affects moral values. It also leads to corruption, which reflects in political uncertainties. Measures to control inflation. Inflation can be controlled in three ways: monetary measures, fiscal measures, other measures. Monetary measures. Inflation refers to excess money supply over the quantity of goods and services. Hence, monetary authorities aim at reducing excess money supply in an economy by using various measures. Increase in bank rate. Bank rate refers to the rate of interest at which a central bank lends money to commercial banks. An increase in bank rate rises other interest rates. This discourages people to borrow money from fiscal institutions and leads to reduction in money supply in the economy. Supply of government securities in the open market. Sale of government securities by the central bank reduces cash with the commercial banks. It leads to a decrease in money supply in the economy. Regulation of consumers' credit. Commercial banks provide consumer credit to buy durable goods. Such bank credit can be controlled by increasing down payment and reducing the number of installments. Increase in cash reserve ratio. CRR refers to the proportion of total deposits which commercial banks have to keep with the central bank. A rise in CRR results into lesser availability of credit through banks. Fiscal measures. Some of the fiscal measures to control inflation are: reduction in public expenditure. Government expenditure should be reduced to control inflation. Increase in taxes. Government increases level of taxes and impose new taxes. It leads to fall in the consumption expenditure. Surplus budget. The government has to adopt surplus budget in order to control inflation. Public borrowings. The government borrows money from market, private individuals and firms. It takes away the excess purchasing power of the people. Other valuation. It discourages exports and increases the availability of goods and services in a country. Other measures. It includes direct measures taken by government to control inflation. Expansion of domestic output, so as to meet the ever-increasing demand. Direct control of prices and rationing. Adopting appropriate wage profit policy. Publicity campaigns to appeal the people to control their expenditure. Control of population growth. Summary. You have learned that inflation is generally associated with rapidly rising prices. Professor Crowther defines inflation as a state in which the value of money is falling, that is, prices are rising. There are two main reasons of inflation: increase in demand for goods and services, decrease in supply of goods and services. A low inflation rate stimulates economic growth. Inflation leads to unequal distribution of wealth and income in the society.